Alright, buttons on, recording. This is going to be a beginner training mode video. I'm just going to run through the options in training mode so that, I mainly want to give kind of perspective on like how to use them, right? Because like a lot of people are like, training mode and they go into training mode and then they practice combos and it's kind of like, there's so much more you could do, and there's so much more that you need to do in order to reach like a competitive level. So, kind of want to just like speed through that stuff real quick, especially for like newer players and stuff. So, obviously we have our favorite, the character and BGM settings, right? You know what to do here. Everything's pretty self-explanatory. You can switch your starting character, which is very useful. For match starting position, you can actually hold the direction and press the reset key to pick that, so you don't have to go into the menu and do it every time. So, yeah, that's pretty quick, right? So we've got regenerative health and blah blah blah. To adjust the character's life, of course, you just do this kind of thing, right? But in the case that you want to practice stuff that's in resonance, right, where one of your characters needs to be dead. If your character won and then you set their health to 0 and you restart, they're still alive, right? But if you tag them out, they'll die. So, that works just fine. If you wanted to, you could hit this, character 2 start, and then we just start like that in resonance, ready to go, right? So, that's that. Again, astral combos, of course, you need one of the characters remaining. You can change the assist gauge. Oh no, just kidding, that's cross gauge. This is skill gauge, so meter, as we call it. We just call it meter. I didn't even know it was called skill gauge, but yeah, it's for meter. So you can go all the way up to 9. For resonance stuff, of course, you just start in resonance. But you want to make sure that if you're trying to check if a combo works in a real match, you want to start it at 5 because your resonance regen will carry you all the way up to 9. But if you make it start at 9, there will be like time that you're in resonance that you won't have to wait because, it just skips right to that. And cross gauge, of course, your assist meter, right? So this will max out as soon as both of the characters are in kind of neutral, right? So this also includes cross combo, even though as soon as you let it rip, right, it doesn't do anything as long as your point character, right, doesn't have the opponent in block stun or is in the air, right? So in neutral on the ground, whatever. It's pretty much, there's no real case where this will like trip you up in terms of dealing with things that will happen in a real match, so you can generally just leave this on. Cross gauge max if you want to test specific things, like, if you want to test a route that only works at 50%. Here, let's change this. I didn't get to these yet! So if you want to test a route that only works at 50%, something like this. Right? Like, you can get a good sense of how much cross gauge you have left. So, yeah. Resonance, of course, level 4, just cause. So, just your resonance level, whatever, right? So now we get into the meaty stuff, the actual things. This is like the purpose of the video. This is how you use like these options, right? This is how you should be using these options. So you've got enemy stance, standing, crouching, jumping, right? So one of the big things about this is like this will help you test fuzzies and stuff, but even if you have the opponent crouching, right, there are certain things that will not cause the CPU to guard low immediately, right? So you could do this, right? So this, I'll try to do it, right? That hit her. That hit her. But if she was crouching, that wouldn't do it, right? So let's do a recording and play back. Please, Blake. Okay, that hit her, right? Because she is holding down. Right? She's holding down. So she has to crouch, right? But if you're holding down back, Look, let's watch. If you're holding down back, you enter proximity guard, and it just whips completely. So you gotta be careful with stuff like that, especially when people think that like things will hit as instant overhead, but the CPU can't display that. So just a word of warning. So you got crouching, jumping, pretty self-explanatory stuff. Counter hit, force counter hit, random. If you wanted to practice your counter hit confirms, right? If you're like, oh shit. Well, I can't do the combo. Just kidding. It's very hard for me to do combos while I talk, but anyway. If you want to practice counter hit confirms, yeah, there you go. Set to random, blah blah blah. Or testing things that will like not normally confirm, like, right? That doesn't work without counter hit. So it's worth checking to understand that. Especially useful for things where you'll check to see if a kind of committed set of inputs will work on counter hit, where a hit will likely counter hit, right? So let's change the blocking, right? So I'll go through the blocking stuff real quick and then I'll get back to this. So you got guard all swap, which switches between high-low guard. Guard all no swap, so you can get hit by overheads. After first hit means, right, like that. First hit only, right? So first hit only is a really useful one, right? So first hit only is useful because it helps you test if things are perfectly within block stun, right? Because look, here, I'll show you an example. If we just have it set to, say we want to test the fuzzy, right? And a fuzzy is like a rising overhead done while the opponent is in block stun, right? We want to test this fuzzy, so we're gonna do this, right? Oh yeah, it looks pretty promising. You think this is an instant overhead? Guard first hit only says no. No, there's a gap there. So because there's a gap, it means that the opponent can switch their guard, right? And then, you know, your normal whiffs, right? But if we want to test it, is that a fuzzy? That's a fuzzy, yeah. And we tested it with recording, but we could also test it here. Oops, there's a gap there. That's a fuzzy for sure, because she's set to first hit only and stand guard. So we got it. Random guard, of course, if you want to test your frame traps and your your conversion ability in general. So it's good for practicing that kind of stuff. But generally, right, training mode is more about expanding like your knowledge of these things, right? So the kind of nice thing about training mode is you can test things to see if they work or not, right? So this is where the rest of the options come in. You can check all the different scenarios that your opponents could potentially go through, especially on your own setups and stuff like that. So talking about like the counter hit thing that I was talking about, blah blah blah, right? So we've got first hit only, right? So we've got a frame trap, right? I'm gonna try to do a frame trap, staggered normal, and see if it converts into this thing. So that combos on counter hit on a gap, right? But obviously does not here. Right? It doesn't combo unless that specific frame trap hit is counter hit, right? So it's not a bad deal for me to do this, because in most cases where I do this, it's gonna hit someone like mashing, maybe. They're trying to throw. Something like that. You know, you get the idea. So alright, onto the good stuff. Onto the good stuff. I'll show you how to use this. So I'll skip over the push block setting for now, and I mean all this stuff is just fluff, so you know we're gonna spend a lot of time here. I'm gonna skip over the push block thing for now because it has a bit of extra functionality and stuff like that. So aerial okizeme, right? So what direction they tech in the air? So they've got forward, backwards, and random, right? Or disabled, which means that you can do combos that don't work. Oh, I can't do combos that don't work. Right? Disabled. So, the nice thing about testing forward and backwards tech is if you get stray hits, you want to know where characters will end up, right? So, let's say I do this, and I can't really confirm this, but I'll hit a character jumping, right? And I don't know where she's gonna go, right? So this is actually useful with the jump setting. I'll make her tech forward, right? So let's just see where she goes. I want to make sure that I'm safe here. So where does she end up? What should I do after this? I'm Blake, so just an example of an idea that I would have because of something like this. I would run forward, right? Because I'm facing this direction, I can run really far and I can, you know, cover some space. Safe for me to go for, right? I don't have to worry too much. And I'm also doing that in mind where I'm not going to overextend, right? I'm not going to overextend. So, especially if she goes backwards. She's already within sweet spot range. So, you know, it's a pretty good deal for me to do that. But what happens if they neutral tech, right? I end up running right to where she is, right? So that's something to be aware of, right? Because if I'm trying to chase the techs, she can just come down and stick out a button real quick. So I'll set it like this. Right. So we want to be careful. I'll hope that yeah, let's do this here. Right? So that covers the neutral tech pretty nicely. That covers the neutral tech really nicely. But what happens if I... Oh, pretty safe. Pretty safe, right? So understanding the ways that your opponent can use their different options in these different scenarios is pretty crucial, right? So that kind of gives you a pretty basic framework of how to use that kind of air tech setting, right? So that is a bit more intricate than the ground tech system, because the ground tech system is a lot more restrictive, right? You just have neutral, back, and forward. And you can't disable it because you will automatically tech when you hit the ground, just like that, right? So this is really important for testing your Oki setups, right? Because most people would just leave this down at neutral and they're like, I'm the best, you know? I'm gonna do the safe jump. Wow, I can't do combos, I'm sorry. Oh wow, that was a safe jump. We did it, guys. That's it. That's my Oki. Right? So, you know, seems all fine and dandy. But, you know, what happens if we set it to tech forward? They flip out the corner, of course. I don't even have to do it. It looks obvious enough, right? So that's a pretty restricted example because it's the corner and back and forward tech don't mean so much. But there are cases where, you know, you might want to cover back tech. There's a combo I should be doing here to show you this. Oh, looks good. Looks pretty good. You know, they back tech, so it covers neutral and back tech, but if I forward tech, right? Bit troublesome. Bit troublesome. So at least at this point, I can test the options, right? I know what works and I know what doesn't work. I know how to cover my wake up here. I know what to do in case of them forward teching. So at least at this point, I understand that this kind of Oki coverage, right, is a call out on back and neutral tech, but not on forward tech, right? And it's a little risky because if they forward tech, you can explode. But I mean, if you were very keen on it, right, you could realize that you still have your tag option. So it's not too bad. But you know, that kind of thought comes into play because it's unsafe. So at least we got to explore that with the ground tech options. So testing your ground Oki is going to be really important, of course. Using a recording is a really good idea because it maintains the activity. Right. I did my Oki a little wrong here, but right. So here we got a knockdown, right? What happens if I forward tech? Ah, hide autocorrects. Hell yeah! Even though Blake is all the way over there, you know, we can make it work. Can't jump that way. Can't jump that way. Can't jump that way. We've got a good Oki setup, right? Good thing we got to test, right? So one of the good ways to test this for yourself is, you know, setting up a recording and then having them do it on you so that you can test the tech options and the coverage. But sometimes you want to check if you can feasibly react to like the different knockdowns and stuff like that, right? So that's a pretty good use for the random one. You know. Alright, so here, I'm gonna just try to chase attacks. Oh, whoops. Gotta do the combo. Did I do that immediately? I guess so. Alright, so I guess she's within range. My run speed's fast enough to meaty the attacks properly. But I'm a little worried about forward tech. Because I might run too far. Well, looks pretty solid. Right, so, you know, Blake's run speed is really fast. So, if I was hide... A little rough, can't get great pressure, can meaty, but not really in prime position to do too much. But, you know, that's not so bad right there. Right? So, this is definitely something worth practicing. Definitely something worth practicing. So this is another knockdown right here, where I clearly can't pressure her on wake up so quickly, right? So, I mean, it's nice to know these things, so of course. This could definitely mean the difference between losing your momentum and then losing the match, so it's pretty important. So, you know, that throw escape, this is not so useful. It just causes them to tech the throw instantly, which is not so realistic in most cases because most people will tech the throw in reaction and it's late, right? So, testing throw escape is much better done on yourself. So, if you want something like if you want to check if like an assist, you know, will cover your recovery while you try to throw them or something like that, you know, like what happens in the scenario where they break the throw, stuff like that. You get it, right? Yes, you do. Generally not worth using this option for, but You know, the... Whoa, my computer screen went black. So the recording function does way better job in this. So you got stagger recovery. It should be just on all the time. There's almost zero reason why you would ever need to turn this off. And everything that you test that involves stagger would be like fake combos and stuff. It's not really worth it. They just have to hold a button and they tick out. So you know, you get used to that. Counterattack settings, useful. So this will help you check if your things are safe jumps, right? And it's a little difficult and kind of like, you know, kind of monotonous to just keep going through safe jumps and being like, is this a safe jump? So let's imagine that I have not turned this on. Or is this safe to reversals? Right. So then I'd have to play it back every time and just... Yeah, it's a safe jump, but I had to do it twice. Right. You just leave reversal action on, you all good. Right. Plus, it makes it very easy to test safe strings. Right. So you don't have to keep testing this. Right. As soon as they block something, if there's a gap, they'll DP. So, you know, pretty helpful. Good to check what's safe or not, especially like, you know, it's a DP. Something like that's unsafe, right? That's unsafe. So you can actually combine this with the push block function to come up with like very, very human responses to things. So we got fast attack. Distortion skill 1 is 236. Distortion skill 2 is 214, and we've got backdash, which is very nice to test. Just like that. Alright. So why would you ever want to test these things? Because these are all responses to things during pressure, right? Throw is a pretty staple option too, swap is as well. It'll happen, right? You need a tight enough gap. And if your shit whiffs there, it's a little, you know. So, good to be able to have the computer test this for you in a frame-perfect way, because, you know, sometimes people will be doing stuff like this, right? There's obviously a gap there, right, as we can tell. But imagine if I did this, and I accidentally moved up back too slow to check if there's really a gap or not. And I kind of just dismissed it. I was like, ah, maybe I just didn't hold it fast enough. Or, like, is there a gap here? I can't DP out of it. The CPU will do it for you. So, disabled. Obviously, reversal action you're going to use to test safe jumps and stuff. So, here's, like, the big thing, right? We're going to combine everything. We could combine reject guard. Oh yes, before I talk about combining things, reject guard also has a built-in function where the attack counts as the burst point, right? So not only is it push block, if they get hit, they will burst, right? So it's good for testing, right? But again, it can only do kind of like CPU simulated things where it'll burst on the move and not with a specific timing that people will usually burst. So you'll have to test that kind of thing yourself. Where you got stuff like this. Always. Right. So that was an immediate burst. That was a late burst, right? And look at the results were different, right? Oh, that's immediate burst, right? And late burst is right, a little different. So you want to be mindful of that kind of thing. So same thing with Rotec. You know, you're going to be testing that kind of thing yourself with the recording function. Definitely important to check stuff like burst points and for like general safety, right? Because if you do a combo like this that ends in DP in the air, right? We're like, damn. Maybe I shouldn't have ended my combo in DP, right? So, some DPs won't whiff on bursts like that. It depends on the burst, but you know, obviously you gotta check different character options, characters have different bursts and stuff like that. So, same thing with throw tech. Obviously some characters are gonna be advantages after the throw tech. It's a little difficult to test this kind of thing, but you can kind of ghetto it with the CPU, right? Just like that, right? So it's useful, very slightly, very specific situation, but you know. Anyway, talking about combining everything. So the push block function. You want to know if your pressure's safe, okay? You want to know if your pressure's safe. You know, I know a lot of people be swanging at me like crazy, right? They're like, yeah, I'm the best. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this cool block string. Ooh. Oh, she's supposed to block. So cool. Unsafe on push block. I mean, maybe it's unsafe on block too, but you have cancel options, right? Damn, that's unsafe? Wow, I could really just dash it on you like that? Wow. So, testing how safe your strings are and testing how tight things are on push block, because push block, right? So talk about like mechanics. Push block reduces blocks down to 10 frames from when you press the buttons. So it's good to check if there's gaps and stuff, right? So this is where the reversal action and backdash things come into, right? Because, let's see, before I add that actually, here, let me do block string. Wow. Wow, this looks like a promising block string. Right? It hits her on push block, but if we combine push block and backdash, we find an answer to this, right? So there are a couple other scenarios where realizing that like certain things are unsafe on push block backdash, or like, you know, push block backdash and push block DP and push block super, of course, right? So there's a lot of stuff in the game that is not so tight. So I'm gonna show you a quick example, right? I'm gonna go with the girl. Yeah, sounds good.
Get ready.
So this is why you'd want to like combine the options and stuff, right? So she's the wrong character, and I will be in resonance, just to show you guys something that maybe you've been dealing with that you don't really gotta deal with as hard. So, okay, right? So here we've got a hide, right? So first off, man, you know, it really sucks. I can't get out of this block string, no matter how much I push block. Well, we've got this cool thing called backstep. Wow. Holy moly. And then I'm in the whole whiff recovery. I can't do anything! Hyde can punish me freely. Same thing with Blake. Right? And I think this is a bit clearer of an example. Right? Because look, Blake, she's free to do whatever she wants. And I'm just stuck. Psh! Right? Okay, cool. Right? What else do we got? Distortion skill 2. Right, we've got this cool super called Pale Bringer. Right? So this is a very good example of something that you should know for matches, right? And a lot of people get like cheesed out by this, and they just explode, right? Good job, Hyde. You did it. Can Blake do that too? I don't know. Blade gets bodied. Blade gets bodied. But that's okay. Hyde doesn't get bodied, right? So it's definitely worth noting, but at the same time, look at what happens if we don't push block, right? If we just tried to see if he could super the gap. Oh jeez. Oh jeez, girl, go home. Alright. Wrong super. But so in this case, right, I'm gonna do the same thing. No gap. Too late, buddy. It's too late, buddy. So obviously, you know, if we didn't combine push block and these options, we wouldn't be able to figure out that they were answers to this kind of thing. So worth a look. Worth a look. You know, the rest of these are visual stuff. It's not a big deal. Recording settings, and then we've got character-specific stuff. Right, so recording stuff. So, I mean, I already talked about the recording function and the playback function. I only used one, right? And that's kind of like the most rudimentary understanding of this kind of thing, right? Oh, you press recording, standby, you press it again, you press the button while you're recording, you press the recording button again to stop the recording, and then it's binded to the playback. It will repeat all of your inputs, right? And one great thing about this recording function is you can use it to check frame data, you can use it to check startup, right? So I know Hyde 5A is however many frames, but I want to see how fast Hyde 2A is, right? Maybe I don't know either, right? So I'll do 2A 5A, right? So we can look at a point of contact. Do it, dude. Okay, finally. So frame 145, he's still in the 2A animation. The 5A hasn't started yet, right? 146, 147 is the first frame of 5A startup, right? So if it's 147, it makes contact on frame 153. It makes contact on frame 153, right? So how we calculate startup is 147, 148, 149, 150, 151, 152, 153. That is a 7-frame startup move. Matches all the frame data, right? Decent way to check startup. You can check total duration on certain things. You can check stuff like static difference on block by making both of your characters jump. Like, say I did this, right? And I tried to jump, right? So I wanted to see how much faster Nu gets off the ground versus Hyde, right? So we can measure that with the ticker in the corner with the replay number. But aside from that, we've got a bunch of recording slots, as you may have seen that I completely ignored. So these measure probability. As you can see, it says that. That's crazy. So it gives you a really nice functionality where you can save an entire set into the, like, you know, into whatever, how many slots you have, right? So if you have things that you want to practice defending against, right? So let's say I'm fighting against my friend who uses Ruby a lot, right? Actually, no. My friend uses Ragna. Maybe he uses both, right? But I'm sick and tired of getting hit by freaking Gauntlet Haze over and over again during his block strings. So I want to practice. Want to practice, right? So this is what the slots are for, right? So say we only want 2 options. Maybe we'll do 3, right? So we got slot 1, 2, and 3, and of course the assigned playback, and then the playback activity, so we can set it to random. But first we're going to go through it to make sure everything's kosher. We've got an overhead. Oh god, I can't block those, right? Sucks. But this is why we're here, we're practicing. Right? So we've got a low in the mix. We got a low and then an overhead, oh my god. It's getting a little too crazy, right? So we're going to press random playback, right? And we just want to make sure that we can block these, right? So it's a good way to practice. But you got to make sure that you do the things in such a way where it's actually mix-up and you're not reacting to a specific part of the recording that gives you a tell, right? So you just want to make sure you got it on deck. I try to DP that on reaction. Anyway, good for practice. That's probably the best use of the separate recordings for defensive practice. So that's kind of what you'll be using them for. Of course, we've got our character-specific settings to make our lives easy, right? This is just useful stuff. Sometimes you get things happening in training mode that can't happen in real matches because of these, but you know, for the sake of convenience, it's pretty useful. Some of them cause the activity to like act a little weird, just like a live versus axe level, and it has to do also with the way that like this recovers, right? So you see how it goes down when I'm in the air, but it like resets while I'm on the ground. The activity of some of the character settings will cause stuff like that to happen too, so it gets a little weird, but you know, whatever. That's about it. Mainly what I wanted to go through was how to use these settings, the dummy settings, and how you want to be using these to like practice defense and stuff. But mainly, guys, check all your setups, Oki, all the good stuff. Make sure that shit is tight. Make sure you cover all the options. Make sure they play your game. That's about it. I could cut it right here, but I'm gonna say some stuff. You can hit me up on Twitch, whatever. I've been streaming a lot lately. A lot more videos coming out on the channel. Thanks for bearing with me. I love doing my videos in one take so that I don't have to edit them. But hopefully my voice is not too droning for you, and all the sound levels and everything were good. Blake is mid, blah blah blah. I got my nice Blake is mid emote. Anyway, find me on Twitch, find me on Twitter. Sub my channel, send me selfies, kissy faces, anything. It's all good.